everybody, this is the Wikstrand. So, The Bride of Frankenstein often ranks as good or even better than the original Frankenstein. And if you wanted to know what actually happened to the monster, from the original movie, you had to wait 4 years until, the sequel was released. Because this is essentially the second part of the story of Frankenstein and, his monster. And while I think that this movie is really good, I actually think that the original Frankenstein is better for a number of reasons. It focuses more on, Frankenstein himself and not as much on the monster. I'm not a fan of that he speaks, but I'm okay with it. This movie is ultimately saved, however, by its actually fantastic ending. Let's see how fantastic it is, shall we? This is The Bride of Frankenstein. So the monster survived the blaze in the windmill from the first movie. He did so because there was a lake underneath, who knew? And now he's roaming the countryside killing at will. At the same time as this is happening, Frankenstein is, going to wrap up things and get out of here and, abandon his research and stuff like that. But a mad scientist who we have never seen before comes and says, I want us to work together, and he kind of bullies Frankenstein into continuing his research. So, and this mad doctor also has, been able to create life, and he has these hand-sized little people which he keeps in jars. One is a king and one is a bishop. What? You shouldn't think too much about this sequence, and the movie kind of forgets that it even happened, so you probably will be better off just forgetting that it ever happened, because it doesn't affect the movie at all, it doesn't affect the story at all. I just wanted to mention it because it is a small and bizarre sequence, and it was kind of, that's weird. Anyway, so the monster meets up with a blind man and finds shelter with him, and the sequences between them, I actually find them to be kind of sweet. But in the back of my head, I can only watch this sequence and think about Gene Hackman as the blind guy in Young Frankenstein fucking everything up in one of the most hilarious sequences in parody history, in maybe the single greatest parody of all time. Eventually the monster, persuades Frankenstein to make him a friend, or a bride, if you will, because, Frankenstein's wife has also been, sort of kidnapped, so he has to, go ahead with the, plan. And, the Bride of Frankenstein is eventually, unveiled. The thing is that the Bride of Frankenstein is such an iconic look, and is such an iconic figure that you would think that she, has lots of screen time, but she only shows up at the very, very, very end of the movie. And I was like, huh? So many pop culture references and so much movie history relies on these very few minutes of this character actually shows up. Now, if she is so iconic and the movie's ending is so fucking great that a pretty good movie elevates into a really good movie because of it. This movie isn't really scary. It is just a very atmospheric classic movie with iconic sequences and iconic characters that you get immersed to because, they are so historically important. By the way, the movie begins in the most weird and unexpected way possible. We have a bunch of stuck-up, snooty British people who are, discussing things, and all of a sudden they're talking to Mary Shelley, who, wrote Frankenstein. Not actual Mary Shelley, because she was dead at this point, but this was still a weird way to begin this movie. This is a very short movie, so they needed to maybe pad out the runtime a little bit. It is an entertaining movie, and because of its short runtime, it never overstays its welcome. The acting is pretty okay, makes this movie more than watchable. The Bride of Frankenstein is a complete classic and an iconic movie. I give this movie 67 points. I think that part of it is fantastic. The movie drags a little bit towards the end, but the third act and especially the last 10 minutes of this movie is absolutely stonking good. To me, Frankenstein is still a better movie, and the Frankenstein made in '94 by Kenneth Branagh is the even better movie than this one, but you're not allowed to say that, but I'll say it anyway. Should you see this movie? I think you should. It is a classic that needs to be watched, and make up your own mind when you see it. So I'll see you next time for so-and-so reviewing, well, such and such. Thank you for watching. Thank you very much.